My name is Patrick Sugup. I'm with Sugup Real Estate Services, born and raised here in Fort Collins. It's a brokerage firm that started in 2016. I myself started in 2008 with my first fix and flip, and then got involved with property management in 2013, moving into a full-time position. I love real estate. I enjoy digging down into the numbers. I just hope this information has some type of help for you. And so today we're going to talk about single-family rentals, duplex, triplexes, and fourplexes. Hope you guys enjoy. So we've talked about owner-occupied properties, short-term rentals, and today we're going to talk about single-family rentals between 1 and 4 units. So that's a single-family house, duplex, triplex, fourplex. To start with, we're going to look at what the current market is to buy. So for a single-family property here in Fort Collins, you could probably get around $180 to $200 per foot for an investment property is what you'd be looking at. Duplex, $200,000 to $250,000 per unit. Triplex, $200,000 to $230,000 per unit. Obviously, those values can fluctuate depending on the age and the amount of finish that it has. The rents on those properties are going to be anywhere from $1.10 per square foot to $1.30 per square foot on a monthly basis, or $550 to $600 per bedroom on a monthly basis. So let's go through what an example looks like here in Fort Collins, Colorado. If we were to buy a 1980s duplex, two bedroom, one bathroom, side-by-side duplex, we could buy it for around $400,000, roughly. A little higher, probably not any lower. With 25% down on a 30-year fixed mortgage and at 4.5%. So if our rents were $550 per room, that'd give you $1,100 per side per month, so $2,200 for the total duplex. We use a 30% expense ratio, which includes your management, insurance, taxes, maintenance, anything that you basically could use to manage the property on a monthly basis. CapEx, everything is like that is involved in that, which would get you to $1,540 net per month before your debt service. So going back up to here, your purchase price 25% down, 4.5% interest would get you a debt service of $1,520 a month. So your cash flow is $20 a month. So to buy a duplex in today's markets, considering everything's healthy, would get you a cash flow of $20 per month. That's all fine and well until something like this happens, a black swan event. What is happening now? We've lost our income, both landlords and tenants. Small business owners are also landlords, a lot of them. Tenants are employees of those small businesses. Evictions, no more evictions, not until that's lifted. So essentially, people can start the process for an eviction. A lot of people aren't, but they can start it. But the sheriffs aren't going to be there to process it, or neither the judge will give you possession. So lenders or the government is suggesting that talk to your lenders, mortgage forbearance. We'll talk about that here in a second. The government's giving a $1,200 per person stimulus if you qualify based off your income. And the Paycheck Protection Program loan, which could essentially turn into a grant, which means you don't have to pay it back if you're a small business owner. So that's the current environment. If tenants can't pay rent and the landlords can't pay their mortgage, landlords are offering their tenants rent deferment and then seeking out a mortgage forbearance. But essentially all that's doing is kicking the problem down the road a little bit further. That rent deferment is not rent forgiveness. So people are still going to owe that rent. That balance is going to accumulate onto that tenant's balance, which in turn, that same thing is happening to the landlord. Mortgage forbearance is something that is kicking that mortgage payment down, 2, 3, 4 months. And at the end of that 2, 3, 4 months, you're either going to have to do a loan modification or a refinance of that loan. So that is considering you qualify, if you're able to do a loan modification, if the lenders will allow that, if you can do a refinance. Otherwise, that $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 that you put off for those 3-4 months is going to be due at that time, and landlords are going to have tough decisions. So what's going to happen? Tenants, they could potentially do some family living, brother and sister living in together, kids moving in with mom and dad. That U+2 here in Fort Collins, which is essentially saying that you can't live with two unrelated people, is going to have a lot of pressure, both from landlords and from tenants, because landlords are going to want to get those rents and tenants are going to be able to afford those rents, and the only way they're going to do that is if they had more people living in that property. What about when these balances carry forward? When we do a credit check as a property manager, we look at previous landlord balances, but one thing that we don't really consider too much of is the medical collections. What are we going to do the same thing with this virus? Is there going to be a virus collections that we're just going to overlook that because so many people could potentially carry balances forward? What if these landlords are reporting to credit agencies? I know that they're not going to be, saying late payments or doing evictions, but what if when all of this is said and done, these private landlords or even mismanaged property management companies report to these credit bureaus? Do these tenants have their credits impacted so severely that they're not able to get rent moving forward? And what if tenants are able to find new employment but not as high paying? Are they able to renegotiate those leases? Are they able to qualify for the same standard of living, or are they going to have to move back home, move to a more affordable community? These are things that we're going to have to consider. And what about our landlords? What can happen with our landlords if this situation plays out? Well, more than likely cash flow is going to go negative, which means how long can that negative cash flow last? How much reserves do these landlords have? Well, they can move to self-management. And self-management is a great tool to save money if you know what you're doing. But if you don't, vacancies can pile up quick. Rents maybe not get as much as you could if you had it correctly marketed. Well, you could sell it vacant, sell it as is. Rental properties, as we all know, may not necessarily have the best landscape or the best looking exterior or backyard. And they're gonna have to take a hit on those prices if all of a sudden they have to sell because they're cash flow negative, and maybe have to price it accordingly. Well, they could renew at a lesser rate, and potentially for a shorter term lease. So what I'm saying by that is, hey, let's put these tenants on a short-term lease, something that they can afford, something that they can still pay, and me as a landlord may be able to get a little bit less money, less cash flow, even negative cash flow, but still be able to afford the mortgage. And what if a tenant just really can't afford it and doesn't know what they can do? Well, something as you can do as a landlord is offer them cash for keys. Yeah, you might not be able to do an eviction right now, but maybe they have an ability to go stay with mom and dad or stay with a friend, and you are not in a position that you can do the mortgage forbearance because you too have lost your job. So you're not going to be able to do a refinance at the end of that term when that forbearance is over and your mortgage is due. Maybe you offer them $500, $400, something, so that they can move out, move on, and you can turn that unit over and potentially get new renters in there that want to pay your rent. So maybe you're out $1,000, $1,500, but you're not out months and months of negative cash flow. So what does all of this mean? Honestly, property management is probably more valuable today than it has been in many, many years. It's always a valuable service, but today, being able to navigate, collect rents, negotiate with tenants, have right addendums in place, get landlords in a position to be successful and leverage the community that is such a strong sharing of information. Single family rentals under $400,000 or duplex, triplexes, or fourplexes that are sold at $200,000 per unit, I think in 60 to 90 days, especially these self-managed properties, they're in for a lot of pain. When when rents might not come in and mortgages are still due, vacancies are increasing, income's decreasing, man, that's a perfect storm. So they're going to be in for pain, especially if they bought at those price points. When these duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes sell, rather than selling on emotion, they're going to sell on the actual income that they're generating, which we don't know what's going to happen. If incomes and rents, stay strong because of population, well, they could still be selling at those price points. But I feel like these duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes have been selling more emotionally on the market than they have based off the income that they're generating. I don't think single families are going to have an issue when those sell. Yeah, they're going to have some value add and maybe get a little bit of a discount, so those handyman specials could come in. But there's such a pent-up demand from people to buy these properties that I don't think single families are going to have that big of an issue selling. But ultimately, it gets down to what our population and employment's doing. Is our population still expanding? Do we still have strong employers like Otterbox and Madwire? And what does that look like as far as the Fort Collins market in general? Right now, there's too much uncertainty to really make any type of predictions. But as we've discussed, I really do think that owner-occupants are going to be strong. Short-term rentals are going to be demolished here in the next 60 to 90 days, but maybe long-term, after 6 months to 12 months, they come back around. So wrapping up, I do think that the single-family rental business, duplex, triplex, fourplexes, are going to feel some pain here in the next 60 to 90 days when we do see the incomes drop, vacancies increase, the need for that professional property management to come into play. But who knows? Maybe this is a blip. Maybe incomes are figured out. Maybe the government comes into play stronger. Maybe people go out and find other employment and are able to figure it out between them and their spouses. We just don't know. But what we're currently seeing and what we've seen in the past couple years based off of people buying at these really high prices, needing to generate these really high rents, there's just not much room to for cushion for these rents. So I hope that people have reserves, especially the single family duplex, triplex, fourplex that have bought in the last 2 to 3 years.